Companies aren't meant for girls, Emma. My father's words echoed through the boardroom, each syllable striking like a hammer. Your brother will be taking over as CEO. You can stay on as his assistant if you'd like. The smirk on my younger brother Mark's face made my stomach turn. I'm Emma Carter, 32, and until that moment, I'd spent the last decade transforming our family's struggling manufacturing company into a modern, profitable enterprise. While Mark spent his college years partying and barely graduating with a business degree, I'd earned my MBA, worked every position from the factory floor up, and increased our revenue by 300%. But none of that mattered now. Not to my father, William Carter, who still lived in a world where women belonged in supportive roles, definitely not in the CEO's chair. Of course, I replied, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Mark will need someone to explain how everything works. My brother's smirk faltered slightly at my calm response. He'd expected tears, protests, maybe even begging. Instead, he got a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. That's my girl, Dad said, patting my hand condescendingly. Always practical. Mark has fresh ideas, new vision. The company needs young male leadership to move forward. Young male leadership. Mark was 28, 4 years my junior, with zero practical experience. His only vision involved expensive suits and long lunches with clients who still remembered him as Billy Carter's boy. I gathered my things, nodding politely as Dad outlined Mark's transition plan. What neither of them knew was that I'd seen this coming months ago. The whispered conversations, the closed-door meetings, Mark's sudden interest in quarterly reports he'd never bothered to read before. That's why I'd been preparing. Walking back to my office, soon to be Mark's office, I passed Sarah from accounting. Her eyes were red-rimmed. News traveled fast in our company. Is it true? She whispered. They're really giving it to Mark. It's true, I confirmed, squeezing her shoulder gently. But don't worry. Everything will work out exactly as it should. Back in my office, I opened my laptop and sent one email. Just one. To a contact I'd made 6 months ago when I first noticed Dad's lingering glances at Mark during board meetings. The response came immediately. Green light confirmed. Project Dawn begins tomorrow. I spent the next hour copying files I legally owned, years of research and development I'd personally overseen. Then I cleared my desk, taking only my coffee mug and a small photo of Mom. She died when I was 20, leaving me with a father who'd never quite forgiven me for not being another son and a brother who'd never quite grown up. Everything okay in here? Mark appeared in my doorway, rocking back on his heels with poorly concealed glee. Need help packing? No thanks, I replied, picking up my box. But you might want to actually read those quarterly reports before your first board meeting. The Henderson contract renewal is coming up, and they're particular about knowing who they're dealing with. His smile dimmed slightly. I'm sure Dad will handle all that. Of course he will, I said, walking past him. Good luck, Mark. You're going to need it. The next morning, instead of driving to Carter Manufacturing, I parked outside a sleek office building across town. The security guard greeted me by name. We've been preparing this for months. Morning, Ms. Carter. Everything's ready on the 15th floor. Upstairs, I found exactly what I planned. A fully equipped office, modern manufacturing designs spread across the walls, and 30 of Carter Manufacturing's top engineers and designers seated in the conference room. They'd all jumped ship with me, signing contracts months ago when I first spotted the writing on the wall. They believed in my leadership, not my gender. Morning, everyone, I announced, setting my box down on my new desk. Welcome to Phoenix Industries' first official day. Let's show them what the future really looks like. Over the next 6 months, we worked in perfect secrecy. Phoenix Industries, backed by investors who'd watched my success at Carter Manufacturing, quickly established itself as an innovative force in the industry. We secured contracts, developed new technologies, and most importantly, we did it all while Carter Manufacturing scrambled to maintain the relationships I'd built over the years. I heard through the grapevine that Mark was floundering. The Henderson contract, as I predicted, fell through after Mark showed up unprepared for their renewal meeting. Dad had to step back in, postponing his retirement plans to keep things afloat. But I stayed focused on Phoenix, on building something new instead of dwelling on what I'd lost. Every decision, every innovation, every success was a step further from the shadow of my father's outdated beliefs. Then came the invitation to the annual Manufacturing Excellence Awards. Phoenix had been nominated for Most Innovative New Company, a prestigious recognition usually reserved for more established firms. I RSVP for 2 seats, leaving one mysteriously empty. The morning of the awards, Sarah from accounting, now my CFO, handed me a small envelope. "Your mom would be proud," she said softly. Inside was a photo I'd never seen before. My mother in her office, young me sitting on her lap as she reviewed blueprints. I'd forgotten she worked at Carter Manufacturing too, back before Dad took over from my grandfather. Back before she got sick and everything changed. I tucked the photo into my clutch, straightened my shoulders, and prepared to show my father and brother exactly what girls could do in business. The best revenge, after all, isn't just success. It's success they can't ignore. The Manufacturing Excellence Awards ceremony was the industry's biggest night of the year. As I walked into the grand ballroom of the Hilton, I spotted my father and Mark at the Carter Manufacturing table near the front. Dad was adjusting Mark's tie, a nervous habit he'd had since I was little. I chose a table on the opposite side, the empty seat beside me drawing curious glances. The program listed Phoenix Industries as a nominee for 2 categories: Most Innovative New Company and Best Sustainable Manufacturing Practices. Carter Manufacturing, for the first time in 15 years, wasn't nominated for anything. Emma Carter, a distinguished-looking man, approached our table. "James Henderson. I don't believe we've had the pleasure, though I certainly miss working with you." I stood, shaking his hand warmly. "Mr. Henderson, how's your daughter's soccer team doing? Still undefeated?" He beamed. "You remember. Yes, they're heading to state finals." Unlike some people, he glanced meaningfully toward the Carter table. "You always took the time to know your clients as people, not just contracts." From across the room, I could see Dad watching our interaction, his face growing increasingly pale as he recognized one of their biggest former clients chatting comfortably with me. The evening progressed with various awards and speeches. I noticed Mark checking his phone repeatedly, tugging at his collar. He'd never been good at handling pressure, preferring to coast on our family name. Then came the moment that changed everything. The president of the Manufacturing Association took the stage, holding the envelope for Most Innovative New Company. This year's winner has revolutionized sustainable manufacturing practices, introducing groundbreaking technologies that have already secured major international contracts. In just 6 months, they've accomplished what takes most companies years to achieve. The award goes to Phoenix Industries, led by CEO Emma Carter. The applause was deafening. As I walked to the stage, I caught sight of my father's face: shock, disbelief, and something else. Was that pride? No, probably just confusion. "Thank you." I began my speech, my voice clear and confident. Phoenix rose from the belief that innovation knows no gender, that leadership is about vision and capability, not chromosomes. This award belongs to my incredible team, who chose to follow me into the unknown because they believed in those same principles. I paused, making direct eye contact with my father. "And I'd like to thank Carter Manufacturing. Without their unique approach to succession planning, Phoenix might never have spread its wings." The audience's awkward shifting told me they understood my meaning perfectly. Most of them knew the Carter family, and word had spread about how I'd been pushed aside. Finally, I'd like to share this moment with someone special. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the photo of my mother. My mom, Elizabeth Carter, was one of the first female mechanical engineers in this industry. She taught me that barriers are meant to be broken, ceilings are meant to be shattered, and that sometimes the best response to "you can't" is simply proving them wrong. As I returned to my seat, the empty chair beside me was suddenly occupied. The entire room gasped. "Hope you saved me a seat, kiddo," said a familiar voice. My grandfather, Thomas Carter, the company's original founder, had come out of retirement for this moment. He'd been living in Florida for the past decade, supposedly disconnected from the business world. But we'd been in contact ever since Dad's plans became clear. "Perfect timing, Grandpa," I smiled, squeezing his hand. Dad's face had gone from pale to ashen. Grandpa had built Carter Manufacturing from nothing, and his opinions still carried enormous weight in the industry. His presence at my table, rather than the family company's, spoke volumes. "Your mother would be so proud," Grandpa whispered as the next award was announced. "She always said you had the real Carter business sense." Looks like she was right. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and business cards. Every major player in the industry wanted to talk to Phoenix's CEO, while the Carter manufacturing table sat increasingly empty as clients and colleagues gravitated toward us. Mark finally cracked under the pressure, loosening his tie and heading for the bar. Dad sat alone, staring at his untouched dessert, looking older than I'd ever seen him. As the evening wound down, Grandpa stood up. "Think it's time I had a word with my son," he said firmly. "He seems to have forgotten some important lessons about what makes a real leader." I watched as he walked over to Dad's table, their intense conversation hidden from view but their body language speaking volumes. Dad's shoulders slumped, then straightened, then slumped again as Grandpa spoke. "Ready to head out?" Sarah asked, gathering her things. "We should celebrate. Phoenix's future is looking brighter than ever." I nodded, standing up. We had earned this celebration, all of us who had taken the leap of faith together. As we headed for the exit, I heard my father's voice behind me. "Emma?" I turned, meeting his eyes for the first time since that day in the boardroom. "Yes, Dad?" Dad stood there, looking suddenly uncertain, an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Grandpa's hand was on his shoulder, firm and guiding, just like when I was little. I made a mistake," he said, the words seeming to physically pain him. "Your mother, she always said I was too set in my ways, too blind to see what was right in front of me." I waited, letting the silence stretch between us. Years of dismissed achievements, overlooked successes, and casual sexism couldn't be erased with one moment of realization. "The board is meeting tomorrow," he continued. "Mark, he's resigned. The Henderson contract wasn't the only one we lost. The company," he trailed off, looking older than his years. "The company needs leadership," Grandpa finished for him. "Real leadership, not just a nameplate on a door." I glanced at Sarah, who gave me a subtle nod. We'd anticipated this moment, planned for it during those late nights building Phoenix from the ground up. "Carter Manufacturing was Mom's legacy too," I said quietly. "She believed in innovation and progress, not just in technology, but in thinking. Phoenix embodies those principles." Dad's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "You're suggesting a merger," I stated firmly. "Phoenix Industries and Carter Manufacturing, combining traditional strength with innovative vision, but with clear terms." Grandpa's smile widened. He'd known, of course he'd known. "We discussed this possibility months ago." "Name them," Dad said, straightening his shoulders. "I remain CEO of the merged company. The board will be restructured to reflect modern corporate governance, and most importantly," I met his eyes steadily, "capability, not gender, will be the only criterion for advancement in our company." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The merger announcement sent shockwaves through the industry, with our stock prices soaring. Mark, surprisingly, seemed relieved. He took a position in sales, where his natural charm could shine without the burden of executive decisions. Dad, true to his word, stepped back into an advisory role. Every now and then, I catch him watching me in board meetings, a mixture of pride and regret in his eyes. We weren't perfect. Years of ingrained attitudes don't change overnight. But we were learning, growing, evolving. 3 months after the merger, I sat in what had once been my father's office, now mine, looking at 2 photographs on my desk. One was the picture of Mom and me reviewing blueprints. The other, more recent, showed the entire Phoenix team at the awards ceremony, Grandpa standing proudly beside me. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. It was Dad, holding a worn leather portfolio I'd never seen before. "Found this in your mother's old things," he said, placing it on my desk. "Thought you should have it." Inside were detailed notes and designs, Mom's vision for the company's future, written decades ago. Sustainable manufacturing processes, innovative management structures, even international expansion plans. She'd seen it all, long before anyone else. "She knew," Dad said softly. "She knew you'd be the one to make it happen." I was too stubborn to listen. I traced my fingers over my mother's handwriting, feeling a connection across time. "We can't change the past, Dad, but we can build a better future." He nodded, turning to leave, then paused. "The Henderson contract. Their daughter's soccer team has a big game this weekend. Thought you might want to know." I smiled. He was trying, in his own way. 1 year after the merger, we hosted a company-wide celebration. Carter Phoenix Industries had exceeded all projections, our innovative approaches setting new industry standards. The factory floor was transformed for the evening, streams of lights turning the industrial space into something magical. I stood at the podium, looking out at our extended corporate family. Sarah, now our COO, beamed from the front row. Mark, genuinely thriving in sales, chatted with clients he'd finally learned to understand, not just charm. Grandpa, who'd postponed his retirement to serve as chairman emeritus, sat with Dad, both men radiating pride. A year ago, I began, we proved that the future belongs to those brave enough to embrace change. Carter Phoenix Industries isn't just about manufacturing excellence, it's about breaking barriers, challenging assumptions, and building something greater than ourselves. I raised my glass. To my mother, Elizabeth Carter, who showed me that leadership knows no gender. To our amazing team, who dared to spread their wings. And to the future we're building together. The applause was thunderous, but what meant most was the quiet moment afterward when Dad approached me, eyes glistening. Your mother would be so proud, he said, hugging me for the first time in years. And so am I. Later that evening, as the celebration continued around me, I slipped away to my office. The city lights twinkled below as I opened Mom's portfolio again. On the last page, in her elegant handwriting, was a quote she'd written. The greatest revenge is not just success, but success that lifts others up with you. Looking down at the celebration, seeing women and men working together as equals, watching old barriers crumble and new opportunities bloom, I knew she'd been right. We hadn't just saved a company, we changed its soul.